I would like to thank our sponsors of our breakfast briefing, Contracting Plus. Contracting Plus have been a sponsor of the breakfast briefings now for nearly 10 years. Without them, we would not be able to do all of these sessions. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with them again over the next few years. Now to our speaker, Orla Conneely. Orla is a really, really popular trainer. She's a motivational speaker, and she does a lot of work with NRF and lots of other companies. She's director of her own company, High Achievers, which is a training and development consultancy. Orla has trained thousands of people around Ireland and in Europe over the past few years. She has a particular interest and focus on emotional intelligence. Hence why her session this morning, given the current climate that we are in, managing your emotions, is one of the topics that she's very, very passionate about and much sought after in this space, to speak on this topic. So now I'm going to hand you over to Orla. If you have any questions through the session, you can put them into the chat, and Orla will keep an eye on the chat and she will come back to you on it. We want it to be as engaging as possible, so please do get involved and do engage. Thank you and enjoy.
Thanks so much for that, Ger. Good morning, everybody. Great to have you all join us this morning. There was a very large registration. I think over 70 people registered for the call this morning on managing your emotions. So yeah, very, very welcome to everybody that's attended. We're just going to, I'll be speaking for about 35-40 minutes. My focus today is bringing an awareness to your emotions, to your emotional reactions to everything that's going on the external. There's a huge amount going on the external at the moment. So really bringing an awareness in to your emotions, to your emotional reactions, to your thoughts, and understanding how your thoughts are driving your behaviors. So the great news is that we have 65 days left until the end of the year. I'm hearing some of you silently say to yourself, I can't wait for it to be over. What I would be saying is, you know what, be careful what you wish for, because this time last year, many people said to me, I can't wait for 2020. So it's about moving forward with as much optimism and joy and, you know, getting clarity on what we want to achieve over the next 65 days and staying on our own path. So that's going to be our focus. At the end, we're going to have a 5-minute questions and answers. I'd be delighted for any questions, or if you do have questions throughout, you know, put them in the chat box and I will get to them at the end. We're going to do some activities throughout the session, and so I would ask that you have a pen and paper handy and that you join in the sessions, because you know what, this is just going to be a bit of fun, you know, 35-40 minutes. A few tips and techniques on how to manage your own emotion, understanding your emotions, and we're going to make it fun. So I thought this image represented the last 8 months really, really well. You know, what I would call it is the Corona coaster. And over the last 8-9 months, I mean, we've had really high highs, we've had low lows. There's been lots of ups and downs. So some emotions that are coming to the core is sadness, anger, loneliness, frustration. There's a lot of fear out in the market at the moment. So it's been a roller coaster for sure. And, you know, there's one thing I'm certain of in a very uncertain market is that everybody across the world is in the same storm. We're just in different boats. And we've been made to sit at home with ourselves, sit at home, and like there's nowhere to run to anymore in terms of when these emotions would have come up before. We would try and escape them by going somewhere or distracting ourselves. So the world over is sitting at home, sitting with their thoughts, sitting with their emotions. And sometimes that can be a very, very, very scary place to be if we don't have the tools on how to manage those emotions. So, you know, people think that life should look like this, that it's plain sailing and straightforward. Life does not work like that. In reality, we have ups, we have downs, we have challenges. You know, we have viruses, we have lockdowns. So throughout life, we have many, many ups and downs. Now, it's not important what's happening. What's important is how we respond to these obstacles and challenges. And our ability, our resilience will determine how we overcome these challenges. And to be honest, I think we have more challenges coming up now, coming into the winter. You know, there's dark evenings ahead. Even this morning, I'm based here in Galway. It's a dark morning. The rain is coming down. So I think we still have more challenges that we're facing into for the winter months. And it's about having the tools and the ability to overcome. But there's huge room here, because this is how you grow in life, by being outside of your comfort zone. So there's real room for growth and personal development during these times, to, you know, to really, really grow and become bigger and better versions of yourselves. So life is not plain sailing, you know, it's all about the ups, the downs, and managing your reactions throughout the ups and the downs. So the key to managing your emotions is self-awareness. You know, bringing awareness to the emotion that you are feeling. Now, research shows us that emotions that are pushed aside or ignored, that they get much, much stronger. So when we start to suppress them, they come up stronger. It always reminds me of that delicious big chocolate cake that you have in the fridge. The more you try to ignore it, the greater its hold on you. And we all know how that story ends, right? So you might think that you are in control of your emotions, your unwanted emotions, but actually, when you're not dealing with them, they're in control of you. So what we're going to do is we have 6 basic emotions that are universally experienced throughout the world in all human cultures. So we have happiness. Now, I never label emotions good emotions or bad emotions. They just are. We need to remember that emotions are not facts, they're directives. They're directing to show us that there's something out of alignment with ourselves. So I never label an emotion a good emotion or a bad emotion. It just is. So there's 6 basic emotions. Again, it's about becoming comfortable. It's about bringing an awareness to the names of the emotions and how these emotions are driving our behaviors. So let's just go through them. So we have happy, angry, sadness, anxiousness, embarrassed, anger. Now, so the only thing about it is, right, so under these umbrellas, there are umbrella terms, right? So if you're experiencing a strong emotion, you need to consider what to call it. So for example, and I'll be very open and authentic with you. So when the lockdown came in just last week, I'm based here in Galway. So when the lockdown, like we were told of level 5, I experienced a really, really strong emotional reaction of anger, right? Now with the tools and techniques that I have, so I sat with it. And when I tried to understand why I was feeling that way, it was because freedom would be a very important value of mine, that I have the freedom to go where I want, right? So having the, so thinking that I was unable to go where I wanted or do what I wanted to do brought up a huge emotional reaction for me. Again, I just sat with it, I let it pass and went back into the areas that I could control. So when you're experiencing a strong emotion, you know, take time out to consider it. Take time out to put a name on it. So if you're feeling angry, okay, maybe look underneath the umbrella term frustrated, offended, you're irritated. So really naming those emotions, you know, and getting familiar with them. Now I will be sending out these slides also, a few of the slides with these emotions on them, so you'll be able to have a look at them. And I do have an emotions wheel. But the first thing about emotional control and emotional awareness is bringing an awareness to how you're feeling and putting a name on it. Now, when we identify with what we're feeling, it's not I am angry or I am sad. We need to remember that emotions are like clouds. They come and they go. So rather than I am angry or I am sad, you know, really bringing in the awareness of today I'm feeling angry or irritated or frustrated, and sitting with it. You know, what I would say is, with emotions, you need to give yourself permission to feel it. Maybe just give yourself 30 to 60 seconds to sit with it. Now, it's not comfortable. And often when we feel these emotions coming up, what we might do is we might overeat to suppress it. We might drink alcohol to suppress it, or go smoking, or whatever it is that you do. Definitely the eating part is one that I would have struggled with. You know, so when these emotions are coming up, we try to suppress them. It's bringing an awareness in, identifying it, giving it a name, sitting with it, and letting it pass. And what we don't want to do is become stuck in that emotion, because it then becomes a mood. So that's tip number one. So identify what it is that you're feeling, what emotion it is, go in under the umbrella term of what it is. Maybe if you're feeling sad or isolated or lonely, sitting with it and then thinking, you know, today I'm going to take an action to have or to feel more connected by reaching out to people, right? But identifying the feeling, sitting with it, and if there's something and an action that you can take, then following up with that action. Now, for those that have sat on my mindset and how the mind works, so our thoughts drive our emotions, drive our behaviors. Okay. Now, the National Science Foundation shows us that the brain produces up to 60,000 thoughts per day, with 95% of those thoughts being repetitive. So if we're thinking the same thoughts and feeling the same feelings and taking the same actions, it's like we're caught in a loop. So our thoughts are driving emotions, our emotions are driving behaviors. So we really need to become aware of what are the thoughts that we're telling ourselves each day, really bringing an awareness to our thoughts. Right, so what are the thoughts, what are the stories that I'm telling myself over and over and over and over again? Because it's your thoughts that are driving the way you feel. The way you feel drives your behavior. Now, to be very honest, I'm absolutely, you know, I think it's a fantastic thing that we need to sit with ourselves. Because when I ask people, do you believe that your thoughts create your life or have an impact on your life? If I have 100 people, I'm guaranteed 99 people will say to me, definitely yes. However, when I ask the question, you know, did you wake up this morning and consciously think about what you were thinking, or did you go into autopilot? Those 99 or maybe 97 people would say autopilot. So we really need to look at, this is a time where we can become hugely self-aware. What are we thinking? What are we feeling? And what are the behaviors I'm demonstrating? And what is it that I want to change? Now, it sounds simple, right? Change your thoughts, change your life. But it's not that easy because of how the mind works with the conscious and the subconscious mind. So the first question that I want to ask everybody here is, what are you feeding your mind on a daily basis? There's so much out there about what you're feeding the body, the green juices, the spinach, the kale. You know, a big question I want to ask you is, what are you feeding your mind on a daily basis? And really bringing awareness. So are you plugged into the news first thing in the morning? You know, last week I was doing a coaching session with a lady, and her husband was working at night. He's on night shift, and I was doing the coaching, and she had really high anxiety. And when I went through her daily routine with her, the last thing at night that she was doing was watching the fall. Now, for those that know me, I haven't had a television in years, but she told me that she was watching The Fall on Netflix every night. So I went through it with her and asked her about The Fall, of where she tells me that it's about a serial killer on the loose. right? So right before bed, the last thing that she was doing at night was watching, I don't know, was it 60 or 90 minutes of this program every single evening. Now, what we need to remember is there are two vital times of the day that we need to be hugely aware of what we're feeding our mind. First thing in the morning and last thing at night. Because that's when the subconscious mind is open to change, when the brain is in theta. So we need to bring a huge awareness of what it is that we're doing first thing. Are we opening Instagram? Are we checking in on the news? One question, I want you to write it down. What are you feeding your mind? Because what you're feeding your mind has a huge impact on what your daily thoughts are. So good question. What is it that you're feeding your mind on a daily basis? Now, there's one way in which to start changing thought patterns, and it's the power of 3. And this has had a massive impact in my own life. And it's the power of gratitude. 3 things you're so grateful for in the morning. And last thing before you go to bed at night, what are 3 things you're so grateful for, or 3 things that went really well that day? So this is focused, intentional thinking. Now, we have so much research and science back up to show us that when the brain moves from negative to positive thinking, that the front part of the brain starts to light up, and it starts to release neurochemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. So really feel good chemicals. So again, 2 things I want you to start doing. First thing in the morning when you wake up, this is focused, intentional thought, bringing awareness to what you're thinking of. What is it I'm so grateful for today? And there's always something to be so grateful for. Now, it's funny because I work with some people and they say, well, Orla, I tried it for a week and, you know, it didn't have too much impact. We need to think that when we're building mental resilience, you know, it doesn't just work overnight or after a week. Like if you go to the gym and you're trying to build a 6-pack, you don't even see a difference after the week. And I think we all want the 6-pack, but we just don't want to put the sit-ups in. So in order to start really rewiring the brain and changing our thought patterns, we need to have clear intention and focus on what it is that we want to think about. Now, if you want to share 3 things you're so grateful for in the chat box, I'd be delighted. We can come back to it after. But again, a clear, intentional, focused thought every single day. It brings your awareness to what you're thinking about. Last thing, going to bed at night, what are 3 things I'm so grateful for? Okay. So I've got great news for everybody here this morning. And the great news is that you have so much more control over your life than you think. So much more control. So let this circle represent your life at the moment, right? So you've got your circle of concern. And in this circle of concern is everything that is out of your control. That's absolutely everything that you cannot control. And your circle of influence is everything that's within your control. Now, if you're worrying and talking and thinking about everything out in your circle of concern, that circle becomes much, much bigger. And that's where we start to feel overwhelmed, because our circle of influence gets much smaller. So this is one I actually did for you earlier. So let's look at the things that are out of our control. So things that are out of our control are the economy. There's absolutely nothing that we can do with what's happening in the economy at the moment. And there's huge things happening. We've got Brexit. The elections are coming up. We're back on lockdown. There's a pandemic. There's so much that's out of our control. You cannot control what your colleagues are doing. You can't control an angry customer. You can't control an angry manager. So you have no control over other people's actions or what's on the news or the weather or whatever it may be. However, within your control, there's so much that you control. So you are fully in control of the choices you make every day. So you can choose when you wake up tomorrow morning, Do you go straight to read the news, or do you go into gratitude, right? So you're fully in control of the choices you make, of the actions you take. You're 100% responsible for choosing your attitude every day. I don't believe that you have 100% control over your thoughts, because they've been fired and wired and they've created programs, so they run on a loop. But it's about you have the choice to feed which thoughts you want. And when it comes to thoughts, I always ask the question: if you have two wolves so a wolf on each shoulder, and you keep feeding one every single day and you starve the other, then which one comes back? So you need to bring an awareness to the thoughts that you're feeding every day. You have full control over what you read and how you deal with others. So I want you to bring an awareness and ask yourself the question: where is it that I'm spending my time daily? Am I talking about the pandemic? Am I worrying about what's going to happen over the next 6 months? Am I spending my time worrying about what my colleagues are doing? Am I talking about what other people are doing? Like really bringing an awareness in to where you're spending your time. Because if you're in that outer circle, it gets bigger and bigger, and your area of control becomes much smaller, and that's where overwhelm kicks in. So it's bringing an awareness, right? Really bringing in that awareness of where you're spending your time. What are you talking about? What are you thinking about? Again, you have so much more control than you think you do. So just bringing an awareness to yourself. And I'll actually send out that slide also. And if you want to request it from Anna, again, it just brings an awareness as to where you're spending your time. Now, when we're going through uncertainty and, or when we're in times of uncertainty, what happens is fear kicks in. And when fear kicks in, it knocks the body out of balance just by thought alone. So if we keep on thinking these thoughts and we're firing and wiring these thoughts into our subconscious, when we automatically think of the future, we create panic, because we've thought these thoughts over and over and over again. And what happens is our body is knocked out of balance. Now, again, just another little technique for you to do. So what I'd like everybody to do is this is only just going to take 60 seconds. So just 2 feet on the floor. Again, it's a little exercise that when you start to feel overwhelmed, you can bring the body back into balance in as little as 90 seconds. Okay, so this is used actually by Navy SEALs under times of extreme stress and pressure, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, and I want you to put your right hand on your lower stomach. So when you breathe in, you're going to feel your lower stomach push out. So you're breathing right into the core of your stomach. So we're going to breathe from corner to corner. So in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and hold for 4. So just doing it in at your own time. So breathing right into the core of your stomach for 4 seconds. Holding for 4. Breathing out for 4. And holding for 4. So breathing in for 4. Hold for 4. Breathing out for 4 and hold for 4. So just checking in with how the body is feeling. Again, when you start to feel overwhelmed or things are out of your control, bring the body right back into balance. Just by connecting to the breath, bringing the body right back into balance. Now, I want to bring an awareness and an understanding of how our mindset drives our results. And it's about bringing our best self every day. So 10 is the absolute best version of ourselves, and 1 is the worst version of ourselves. Now, everybody on this call has been a 1 at some stage, and they've been a 10 at some stage. And actually, I haven't met anybody who has been able to remain at a 10 over the last 9 months consistently with all that's going on. So, you know, 10 is bringing your best self every day. So they say that when we get up in the morning, get ready for work, that we're bringing our best selves into work. And again, what I want to look at is checking in with yourself throughout the day. Well, where am I based from 1 to 10? What does a 10 version of me look like? Right? What does an 8 version of me look like? What does a 6 version of me look like? So we're coming in at our peak in the morning when we're all ready for work, starting the day. Now, it's not easy to remain at a 10 during the day. And I want you to look at that balloon as your level of motivation, okay? Because what happens during the day is there are things that will come in and will take the air out of our balloon. And that's what we want to bring an awareness to. What are our emotional reactions and what are our triggers during the day? So what is it so what are our triggers during the day that are letting the air out of the balloon, and how can we respond rather than react to that? So we'll just go back to that again for a second. So 10 being the absolute best version of yourself, bringing yourself to work and having an understanding that when you're down around a 5, 6, what are the tools and techniques that I can use to go from a 5 to a 5.5? And we'll come back to that in just a moment. What we're going to look at here is we'll look at, we're actually just going to look at what's taking the air out of the balloon and understanding. So I want you to have a think about what are your 3 greatest triggers during the day? So what are your 3 biggest triggers during the day? That's, we'll say, taking the air out of your balloon. What are the 3 things? So I want you to write them down and really get clear about what it is. So what are the 3 triggers that are letting the air out of your balloon every day, that are having an impact on you? So maybe it's an angry manager, maybe it's a co-worker, maybe it's a client, whatever it may be. But just getting clear on what are the 3 things that are stressing you out, that are your 3 triggers daily, okay? Now, my question to you is, if everybody here on the call all experienced the same event, would we all have the same outcome? And the answer is no, we would all experience it differently because we would all have different responses and reactions. Okay, so 10% of life you will never control. And the quality of your life will depend on your response to that 10%. So the question will be, are you reacting to everything that's going on around you, or are you responding? So I want everybody, again, just to do your E plus R equals O. So writing it down yourself and putting one of your stressors or one of your triggers here under the E. So the E equals the event. Now, if you want a different outcome, you would have to change your response. And this is by Jack Canfield, if anybody wants to read up on it further. So for example, if I have an angry manager who's contacting me every day and I react every single time. So when he speaks with me, I feel angry, I react, I snap back. Now, if I want a different outcome, the next time that he speaks with me, I don't react, I respond. Rather than let it affect my energy, I respond rather than react. And that is where your power is. Having a response rather than a reaction. Now, if we look at the reactions that are going on in Ireland at the moment, as soon as the news says that there may be a lockdown, the shops are full and the shelves are empty because people are reactive. So if you cannot change, and this is something you can work on later yourself, If you cannot change the event and you want a different outcome, you need to change your response. And this is where you're emotionally managing yourself, emotional management. Am I reacting to everything, or am I staying in my own power and responding? So really bringing an awareness of what it is that's coming in, taking the air out of your balloon every day, and how can you now respond differently? So I just want to go back to this. Now, generally, when I can see people, this is when I would have you all up dancing with music on to show how we can go from a 5 to a 6. So those that have been in my training rooms before, I'm sure you'd be familiar with this, right? So if I feel, now there's one thing actually that I want to make clear. If you're feeling a 1, a 2, or a 3, and you're finding it difficult, or you can't go to a 4, or you can't go from a 2 to a 3, you just mentally and physically can't, that's okay. But it's important that you reach out and let somebody know, and that you speak with somebody. You know I've been 1, 2, and 3 many times where I've reached out, asked for help, and then moved forward. So if there's anybody on this call who feels like a 1, 2, or a 3, and they don't have they're unable to move forward, that they're stuck in negative thought patterns or whatever that may be, what I would be saying to you is during these times, reach out. However, if you are up around a 5 or a 6, it's about bringing an awareness during the day, right? An awareness of self. Where am I based right now? And how can I move from a 5 to a 5.5? So one way to really, again, these are just some tools and techniques. So to move from a 5 to a 5.5, I would say to you during these times, my trick over these times is I have my runners on all the time. I'm always getting up. If I'm only walking to the coffee shop 10 minutes away, I get up and I move. I shift the energy within the body. I put music on. I take a short break. Maybe I call a friend. Now, if I'm a 5, I call a friend who's a 6. So they'll be able to give me that little bit of a pep in my step. But again, it's bringing an awareness to where you are and how you can do something small at that moment to move forward and feel better. So it's just bringing an awareness. Again, looking at your reactions. I think it was Einstein that said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you'll get the same outcome, right? So again, are you responding to everything, or are you reacting to everything? If you want a different outcome, you have to change your response. So this is not my age or my birthday, if anybody's wondering. This is, you know what, guys, we've got 65 days left until the end of the year. What I would be saying to you is, we need to move forward with optimism and with joy. Right? A lot can be achieved in 65 days. And it's about moving forward, setting little goals, staying on our own path. So I have a question for you right now. And the question is, if you could achieve one thing over the next 65 days that would have the biggest impact on your life, what would it be? So it doesn't have to be work. Maybe it can be exercise. It can be whatever it may be. Maybe you want to start walking you want to do couch to 5K, or you want to hit your target at work. The question to you is, what is the one thing, if you could start today and achieve by the end of the year, would have the biggest impact on your life? What would it be? And I want you to write it down. Now I want to ask you a question. What is the one habit that you would need to do every single day in order to achieve that goal? So what is the one habit that you would need to do every single day in order to achieve that goal? And the last question is, what are the steps that you can start to take immediately to start moving towards that goal. Because you need to remember that this is where your power is. You have the choice to set these small goals, to take action towards them every day, to remain focused in on your own path, and to take steps to move forward with optimism and joy. And what I would be saying to you is maybe find an accountability buddy and swap your goal. But it's about moving forward, taking small action. As I always say, Rome wasn't built in a day, it was brick by brick. So again, just a very quick recap on everything that we covered. So bringing an awareness to your emotions, naming them, sitting with them, and letting them pass, but becoming, I would say, becoming curious about them. So identifying and naming your emotions, bringing an awareness to your thoughts. What are you feeding your mind with every day? So what's your story? Controlling the controllables. What circle are you spending your time in? So managing your state from 1 to 10. If you're a 5, how can I go from a 5 to a 5.5? What are the techniques that I can do to make myself feel a little bit stronger and better right now? Identify your triggers, manage your emotional reactions, and you've got 65 days left. What steps will you take to start moving forward? So everybody bring up your right hand, swing it over your left shoulder, give yourself a pat on the back and say, I am amazing. Thank you so much. And I'd be delighted for any questions that you may have. So I definitely kept it on time there with the 40 minutes. So any questions, I'd be delighted. Thank you, Michelle.
Orla, there's a question there from one of our delegates about their sleeping isn't very good. Very frequently they find their mind wandering back to things that happened years ago, even decades ago. It's usually pointless, insignificant events. She's wide awake, very frustrated. How can she avoid this?
Brilliant. Okay, so there's obviously something that's coming up there, first of all, that needs to be dealt with, right? If it's coming up over and over again. And Patricia, thank you so much for being honest and open and asking the question. So what I would be saying to you is how the subconscious mind works. It's built on repetition and memories, right? So going to bed every night, you have been rewiring and firing these neural pathways within the mind. Now, it's really funny, actually, because a friend of mine came to me last week and said, Orla, I'm not sleeping. There's so much going on in my mind. And I referred her to a YouTube guy. His name is Michael Seeley, right? So he does a deep hypnosis sleeping, right? So you put your earphones in at nighttime and it's raindrops and you know, so it's not going to happen immediately. But this is happening, this is becoming automatic, Patricia, because it's something you've been doing every single night. So what I would be saying is I would start listening to the sleeping hypnosis. I would be putting in my earphones and tuning into the sound of the raindrop rather than feeding that thought every single time. And it will become less and less and less. Now, these emotions will come up, but it might not be at nighttime. Maybe it will be during the day. And if there's anything else I can help you with, or you want the clips, I'll certainly be delighted to make contact, or you can contact me by email. So hopefully that answered your question, Patricia. Anything else? Any questions? Any tips for irrational thoughts? Lorraine Mooney, yeah, absolutely. So what I would be saying is, Lorraine, you need to remember Irrational thoughts, is it your circle of concern or is it your circle of influence, right? So every time you feel these thoughts, because you've created patterns, right? So they're playing like a program every time. So irrational thoughts, every time you start to think these irrational thoughts, become aware of them, bring the body back into balance by your box breathing and connecting to the breath and releasing the thought. And hopefully that answered your question. Anything else? Perfect, Patricia. You can make contact for sure, and I will send you those clips. And if there's any feedback or any other questions, I'd be delighted to answer them. Thank you for the feedback, Sarah and Tunde and Susan.
Okay, Orla, I think everybody, you can see by the comments, everybody found this session very, very useful. As always, your practical advice, it's always advice that we can all implement straight away. There's not any tools or kits that we have to go out and actually buy. So on behalf of us all, thank you so very much. It was very, very enjoyable as well. You can see the comments are just flying in here. Thank you so much. You know, everybody is so grateful for something else to be able to implement to help the journey to be a lot less stressful as we navigate our way through these turbulent times. So I'd like to thank you once again. If anybody wants to send any other questions into Anna and she will send them on to Orla, I'm sure Orla would be very, very happy to answer them for us. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Contracting Plus. And everybody have a wonderful day and week. Thank you.